Hello and welcome to episode 30 of When the Flames Go Up, the ATFC podcast with me, Will Brown. I can't believe I made it to 30. That's quite fun. I'm 30 next year, so this feels pretty significant if you ask me. This episode is, of course, discussing the Rochdale game at the weekend and the Ebbsfleet or nearly said defeat. It wasn't a defeat. It felt like a pummeling. Somehow Ebbsfleet didn't score, but the panel will tell you all about that. And the panel tonight is Ian, Guy, Julian, and Joe. So they'll tell you their thoughts on those two games, as well as looking ahead to our first competitive meeting with Boston United at the weekend. And I really want to go, but I'm in Copenhagen. Sod's law. Just want to say thanks for all your suggestions and contributions for the international Aldershot all-time 11. Great fun looking at those names. Superb. I've seen a Wilco Reeser been sent through. I'll thank you all in the actual episode that we record. It'll probably be next week. So any more suggestions for international 11s, comment on anything that we post, or you could just email atfcpodcast@gmail.com and I'll pick them up. Other than that, enjoy the episode. So a rare week, I'm sure, that Aldershot go 2 games in a row without scoring. On Saturday, the home game against Rochdale, live on DAZN and also National League TV. Rochdale ran out 2-0 winners with 2 first-half goals, Kyrell Mitchell and Devante Rodney scoring. And then Tuesday night, which was last night as we record, the Shots clinged on to a 0-0 away at Ebbsfleet in the driving rain for most of the game. Who am I going to go to first? I think Julian. I'm going to come to you first. I remember you mentioning Kyrell Mitchell last week. So, how did you see the Rochdale game on the weekend?
Yeah, thanks, Will. It was a bit of a surprise, but not a surprise, I guess. In the end. The interesting thing for me was beforehand I sought the views of some other supporters just to get an idea of how they thought the game was going to go. So I spoke to a Rochdale supporter that was there, just sort of hanging outside the rec with their Rochdale shirt on. So poor guy got pounced on by me. I then spoke to an Aldershot supporter a guy called Ben, who's been supporting them for a long time. So I got his views and also got the views of Rob Warrer as well, to try and get a bit of an impartial viewpoint as well. So it was interesting to hear what they obviously had to say.
So I'm with Scott, who's a Rochdale fan, who's made the long trip today. Scott, how do you see the game going today?
I think it's going to be quite a close one. I think it's 1-1 draw.
Okay, and who, from an Aldershot point of view, should we be looking out for, do you think?
I know you had quite a few players last year. I don't know much about you this season, but I know you had Lawrence Tolad, is it last year?
That's it, yeah.
He's quite a good player, but you sold him, so I don't know from a vocal point who you've got now.
So you're thinking it's going to be a draw today?
Yeah, I do. I think you're quite tough opponents, but both going for promotion, so it's going to be quite a fairly close match.
And it looks like Rochdale have got a really good defence at the moment.
Yeah, we have, yeah. We've got a new goalkeeper today, so I don't know how that's going to go. And the captain's injured, centre back, so
right.
Pretty much two new defenders in the back 5. So who knows what's going to happen.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for your time.
No worries.
And we'll see what the end result is.
Hopefully that's a win for us.
Cheers, thank you.
No worries, thank you, man.
So I'm joined by Ben, who's supported the Shots for well over 20 years now. Ben, what do you think is going to happen today?
I think it's going to be a close game. Reading on the way here, Rochdale have got the best defence in the league and have done for God knows how long, and we're the top goal scorer, so it's going to be an interesting game, make no bones about it. I think it's going to be tight, but with our attack the way it is at the moment, I think we'll do well. I think we'll get a result today. Can't say whether it's going to be a high score or not based on their defence, but I think we'll nick a result.
Unchanged lineup today. Any surprises in that?
I'm surprised Barrett's not come back in. I completely agree with James Henry starting because he's been our best player so far this year, without question about it. But yeah, with no Barrett, but Henry, see how we go.
Do you think Barrett will come on perhaps later stages to try and affect the game?
Yeah, absolutely. He's got the key to unlock that their defence, if anyone has. Him and Henry, as I say. So, yeah, we'll see what happens. I think we've got enough in us to nick a result today, but we'll see. But it's going to be a tight one.
Give us a scoreline then.
Oh, blimey. 2-1 Aldershot.
Fantastic. Really appreciate it, Ben. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Julian.
So I'm joined by Rob Worrell ahead of today's game against Rochdale. It's obviously going to be a tight affair. It'd be really good to understand what you think is going to happen, Rob.
Well, I'd love to say another 6 or 7 goal thriller, but I do doubt it today because Rochdale come here with the tightest defence. I think they'll be a lot harder to break down. So it might be more similar, I guess, from a blueprint of how to win a game like this. Might be similar to the game at home to Halifax last year, where the shots had to be patient and won it 1-0 in added time through Tolaj. Rochdale, of course, do have weapons up top, particularly in Pyro Mitchell and Devante Rodney, and they're to be respected coming here before the kick-offs today in 4th place. But both sides have started the season well, and hopefully those of us here and those of us watching on TV and those of us listening to our BBC Surrey commentary will have an entertaining game.
Notice it's an unchanged lineup. Any surprises there?
Not really. I think you go again with what you have if everybody's fit. Have heard news that may or may not be announced that Tyler Frost probably out for 5 to 6 weeks with a hip problem. But I wonder if that might be, certainly in terms of number, but in terms of balance and strength in depth, one of the strongest ever Aldershot Town benches today. You've got a player, you've got a keeper, a centre back, a left wing back, a right wing back, a centre midfielder, a number 10 and a forward in Van Stappershoef, Bird, Barrett, Jones, Barham and Tetek. Name me a stronger bench that Aldershot Town have ever had.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Rob. Thank you very much for your time, and let's hope for a positive result.
Good to see you, Jew. Enjoy the game. Speak soon.
Cheers. So there you have it, 3 differing views, all basically saying that it's going to be a tight match. But I would guess that based on that, I'm going to go for an Aldershot win and a good performance to boot as well. So I'll just hand back to you now, Will, and hopefully, as everybody listens to this, we'll be celebrating not only a win at Rochdale, but 3 points at Ebbsfleet, who have also been beaten actually today by 4-0. So hoping that we can get a really decent result there too. Anyway, back to you, Will.
Yeah, Rochdale did a brilliant job on us, I thought. They were big, strong and mobile at the back. I have to say I was really impressed with the young lad who you mentioned last week, Will, just signed on loan. He played in the centre of the back three, 20-year-old lad from Blackpool, I think he was, who I thought was excellent. Effective in midfield and a handful up front. And I think if you've got that sort of combination in all 3 areas, then you're going to be, there or thereabouts come the end of the season. For me, where we lacked, I think we were exposed quite a few times on the one-on-one with the long kick from the keeper, and it was just literally Pyro Mitchell against I think it was Maghoma who was in the back three. And that happened 2 or 3 times in the first half, which was quite obvious to see, but nothing really happened about it. I was hoping that perhaps he would get a little bit more support, but again, perhaps credit to Rochdale. They were making it so that it was just a one-on-one situation, and they exploited it well. And I know we've mentioned it before, and I know Joe, I think you've mentioned it a couple of times too about our right-hand side, our left-hand side of defence, but their right-hand side, I felt we got overpowered again. The Ollie Harfield, Ryan Glover combination of last season was really effective, but I think we're struggling there at the moment. So I think we'll come on to our thoughts a bit later on in the podcast about what if we were the manager, what we would do and what we'd like to see moving forward. I think we were quite good out the blocks. We started well. We had a good few chances, but I think we sort of lacked composure in the final third, which was sort of our undoing, whether it be a shot or a pass. Whatever we decided to do on Saturday just didn't really work. And in the end, the second half was a bit of huff and puff and not really too much happening. I think we could all see from the game that we weren't going to get back into it, and perhaps that sort of fed through to the players a little bit. But overall, I think it was a fair result, to be honest, and I think Rochdale did a really good job on the day.
Great. Yeah, it was Dan Sassy at the back from Blackpool that you mentioned earlier. And Joe, I'll come to you. How did you see the game, and what are your thoughts on it?
Thanks, Phil. I thought we were well and truly outplayed and outclassed in that game, which hasn't happened for a long time at a home game for us. I think if you look at Rochdale now, as well after Tuesday night's result, they've conceded 3 goals in 8 games, which in the National League is bonkers. Most teams sort of seem to concede a goal a game, so 5 or 6 clean sheets they've had now is incredibly impressive. And I put my early shout there, but that's for them to be up there at the probably top 2 at the end of the season. It's the best individual team performance I've seen at the Rec for a good couple of seasons. No one's done that to us since Tommy's been here. And the biggest difference, I think, was we've gone, as we know, last season, a goal down on many occasions, sometimes 2 goals. But when Rochdale went, I think, after their second goal, we had no way back into the game at all. And they were so professional, so classy in the way they saw it out. Really well organised. But before the goals, the ease with which they went from defence to attack and seemed to just cut straight through our midfield as if it wasn't there, was really impressive as well. And we've sung the praises of Cameron Hargreaves and how dominant he is in that midfield. It's not a criticism of his performance on Saturday, but you didn't really notice him. And we normally notice him because of all those tackles he gets in, but it just seemed to bypass the whole midfield. And as Julian says, down our left side, I don't want to single out any players particularly because I don't really like to do that, but it was far too easy. I think I can't remember if it was the first or the second goal. There was not a great communication between midfield and defence, and sort of they just had the freedom to run down that side and get a cross in. And to be fair, even the finish was far too easy for our centre backs to be beaten at the back post like that. I won't say too much more because I know we've got a lot to cover, but I think it's just a game where it's okay to lose and be outplayed sometimes, and lose a tactical battle. And I think Tommy knows that he perhaps got a few things wrong. Whether he likes to admit it or not, that's just that's a matter of personality. But I think he knows that, and behind the scenes, he'll be trying to address that happening again. But yes, let's forget about that one. Rochdale will be up there. We're going to lose at home sometimes. I think we will continue to have good home form. 2 weeks ago, we were saying how fantastic we were against Oldham, who are a side that full of strong players who expected to be in the top half of the table, and we outclassed them on that day. So tactically and goal wise. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
Great. And I suppose I'll come to you, Guy, because last week you mentioned Fortress Rec, and it was finally breached on Saturday. How are your thoughts on Saturday?
I mean, just to add to what the others have said, I mean, from watching it, I didn't really feel that Aldershot were going to get back into it. It was a solid performance from Rochdale. We went, we came back at them, but we were missing something. But as Joe says, it's you just accept it and you move on to the next one. Given, I think when we were talking last week as well about what would be what with the two games that were coming up, what did we expect? And we were saying, well, obviously if we could get something from Rochdale, that would be great. But really, we're probably looking more towards the second game, which we'll come to. But then, of course, knowing what Aldershot's like, usually, at least so far this season, when we've sort of performed against the teams that we expect to be doing better, and then doing much less well against the teams further down the table. I guess, look, Rochdale are one of the form teams. If you look at the last 5 games, including us and also including last night, they've won 4 out of the last 5. So they are a solid team, and I don't think there's any disgrace about the results. We just came up short.
Yeah, I think that seems to be the general consensus, and I'm sure. Yeah, I mean, if you've only conceded 3 goals in the first 8, or 7, is it? Yeah, that's good. If we extrapolate that across the season, that's might be a fun defence to watch all season. And it's annoying because that's the away game's my 30th birthday, so don't think I'll be seeing any goals on my birthday. That's fun, isn't it? Ian, what were your thoughts on the Rochdale game?
Yeah, I mean, there was suggestion from a listener last week that we were talking up Rochdale to be like Man City. Now, I don't agree with that viewpoint, but we certainly respected Rochdale and feared them, and we were right to do so on that performance on Saturday. And I was very impressed with how they played and their defensive record. Completely outclassed, as the others have said. And prior to yesterday, I think they won again. They beat Maidenhead yesterday. Had a little look just to get the odds on what they were for the title. And they had 22-1 at Sky Bet, whereas most of the odds checker grid had them sort of 14s. So decided to snap some of that up. And of course, yeah, they conceded once last night, but another comfortable win with Maidenhead. And my Maidenhead supporting friends were very impressed with them as well. So I think it's right what everyone's saying, that they should be up there. I didn't make the game, so I watched it on the DAZN app, and they had Luke Garrard as the co-commentator, former Boreham Wood manager, and I thought he was very good as a summariser. I enjoyed listening, and he wasn't too sort of heavy on the cliches. He made good suggestions of how Aldershot could get back into it and what Rochdale were doing well. So if Aldershot are featured on any more games, hopefully he's a co-commentator. But one to move on from and just accept that, yeah, Rochdale were far too good for us.
Nice. Yeah, it's good to see. Yeah, I think I watched the highlights from DAZN and it sounded pretty good. The commentator that was, it's weird because it definitely doesn't sound like TNT Sports, which is quite weird. It's quite a weird gear change. It's always that same voice that we hear. Yeah, I suppose just on the table, Gates said the only team that are unbeaten in the league, and they are therefore top of the league as it stands, and still have a game in hand. Still have a game in hand. They have a game in hand. Okay, well, we've talked enough about the defeats. Let's talk about the game that felt like a defeat, but maybe a draw. We'll see what the panel thinks. Julian, I'll start with you. A 0-0 away at Ebbsfleet last night. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, well, obviously in our group chat, I put on there that let's have a comfortable 3-0 away victory and be in total control and all that, blah, blah. Probably couldn't have been more wrong other than the clean sheet, obviously. But I wasn't there, unfortunately, but I was listening to it from Radio Surrey, and it felt like not 90 minutes, but 90 hours. It was so not painful, but it just didn't feel like we got hold of the game at all. And it was one chance after another. And I just expected Ebbsfleet to score with every opportunity, and it sounded to me as if they had quite a few decent opportunities too. But then again, we had a couple of chances too, by the sounds of it. So, I think probably, and I guess the other guys will have their own views on this. But for me, it probably ended up as a point gained, because I was just forever waiting for the scoreline to go in Ebbsfleet's favour, and to come out with a clean sheet. And as Tommy said after the game, in a positive light, we didn't get anything from there last year. So, we've got a better result than we have last year there. But again, I think it's going to be a topic of discussion throughout the season. It's just bizarre how we're so inconsistent, or perhaps we're consistent with our play against those teams in the bottom area. So my real concern, if there is one, is if we don't carry on with our form with the mid-table and top teams, then we will have a long, hard season. But let's take the positives from it. We've got out of there with a result, and as Tommy says, if you can't win it, then don't lose it. We need to make a few changes for Saturday, I think, and really put it right, because I didn't honestly believe, and I don't think anyone would believe, that we would be talking about these two games and not having a goal. So yeah, I'm really surprised at that, and I would expect some changes to be made for Saturday.
Yeah, yeah. As you mentioned, Tommy Widrington's post match, I feel like I went into it feeling like, come on, what are you going to say? What are you going to say about that performance? And then I come away 5 minutes later thinking, no, you know what? Yeah, no, I agree. I agree, Tommy. Well done. Yeah, there was actually you made no errors. He just kind of everything he turned, he was like, well, like you say, like we didn't get a point there last year. It's like, yeah, it's fair enough. I spoke to the top manager and he said, any point's a point gain. I'm like, yeah, fair play, fair play. Joe, what were your thoughts on the Ebbsfleet game last night?
Yeah, I had to also watch it because if I was to leave work and get to Ebbsfleet, I would have got there as the from Exeter as the final whistle went. So didn't quite get there in time. Wouldn't have got there in time. I always take notes as I'm watching these games, and my notes go. Masters of our own downfall should be 1-0 down, and then some defensive mix-up should be 2-0 down. Something else, half chance, should be 3-0 down. And as it just goes, and I think it got to my second page of notes where on about 58 minutes, we should have been 5-0 down. So if we're talking about a point gained, it's definitely the case. Because, according to my notes, something's, gone mathematically wrong. So absolutely a point gained. But then immediately after the game, I felt we should have won 1-0 because of that golden chance we had for Theo in the last, I think on about 78, 79 minutes, where it was our best attacking move of the game, where we looked like the older shot that we know. Beautiful counter-attack crossing from the right. And I think Theo's reaction said it all. He thought that was the chance, and I think gutted that he missed it. But the ease with which we gave away chances again yesterday was I don't want to say it's a huge worry, but it's definitely a concern at the moment because if we're going to stop scoring goals, which we have in the last two games, we cannot be giving away chances that easily. One thing I wrote down is I really miss Ollie Harfield darting down the left-hand side. I think I only saw him do it once last night, and I got really, really excited, and that was like the last 5 minutes of the game. He's done an honourable job playing as the third player of that back three, but he does feel like he's somewhat stifled in his ability by being put there. But obviously we're slightly limited with the choices on that side at the moment, and I think we really were spoilt with. I think as Julian said earlier, I think it was Julian, that left-hand link-up of Glover and Harfield last season was, I think, perhaps slightly underrated now when we look back at it. And the great chance creation we had coming from there, and that the intuition that those two had. I thought Dewhurst was probably our man of the match last night. I know at one point he almost gave a goal away, but some of the saves he made and the quick speed off his line, I think I don't want to criticise Geordie at all, but had we had Geordie in goal last night, would we have kept a clean sheet? I don't think we would have. But yeah, that's definitely a point gained.
Great. I'll come to you, Guy. I'm gonna need to nip off to get my phone because I made some notes last night that I want to read back and see what on earth I said. But yeah, what were your thoughts on Tuesday night's game?
Well, exactly that. I mean, we were talking about this in the WhatsApp group at half time. I think Joe said we should have been down 4-0 down, and by the end of the game, we were saying, well, that wasn't great. But I said at least it's 1 point. It's not 2 point. It's not 2 points lost. It's 1 point gained. And I found myself as I was watching it actually, listening to to Ian, having listened to the radio commentary, I watched it, and actually I found it quite an absorbing game. I mean I didn't sometimes I watch games and I get a little bit distracted, but this it's kept me watching. Obviously, a bit the chances that that we faced, we were riding by the seat of our pants at times. But that said, I think as well as Dewhurst, actually one other player that stood out for me was Magoma. He seems to be pretty much everywhere there in defence. And you're right about Joe to say that Theo Widgington's was probably the best chance. I also think had he got it, I think it was. We would probably, I think, we'd have probably got a lead that we didn't deserve. I felt. So in the end, 0-0. You can also see as well, I think the other side didn't take their chances as well. And I think that makes the big difference between, teams down at the bottom versus Rochdale at the weekend, because Rochdale took their two chances. neither us or Ebbsfleet yesterday took our chances. The other thing, just no one's mentioned it yet, and I just wondered whether it was we haven't factored in the rain, because what I could see on TV, it seems to be swirling around a hell of a lot, and that must have had some impact on the ability of the players to get the ball down, to move it around. I know it's their job, but when the conditions aren't great and you're not doing too well, and you've come off the back of a goal, sort of having scored a blank. Keep in mind also, last week we were talking about Aldershot being top scorers in the country, and now we're 2 games without goals. So that's got to perhaps prey on the strikers' minds. Elements, the environmental elements might be something to also think about as well. But as I think the general consensus is, we got a point, and we got a clean sheet, which is a big deal for us, because normally we give them away. So if we could just build on the clean sheets and start scoring again, I'd be happy. Oh, and the last thing I'd also say as well, I compare it to when I was watching Braintree the other week, and I came out of the game last night thinking, thank God we got something from that. I wanted to kick my laptop over when I was watching Braintree, because we were looking so assured, we were looking for the win, and then we just threw it away at the very, very end. So swings and roundabouts.
Nice. Yeah, I'm just looking through my notes that I made last night. I obviously had the clarity of mind at halftime to notch it in like 0 to 10 minutes, which was Ebbsfleet cutting through far too easily, losing plenty of battles. Polion, the number 9, causing issues. And in contrast to what you said, Guy, Maghoma looks a bit lost when he's not marking someone. He was, I think, when there's 2 strikers, he doesn't know where to stand or where he needs to dominate, and he just, I don't know. It was chaos. I mean, he could well have been sent off twice, I feel, with some of the challenges that were flying in. And one or two of them, he just completely missed the ball as well. I'm not sure what was going on. 10 to 20 minutes, it did look up, looking good and dominating, making chances but failing to take them. So I think we were pretty going well, pretty forward. 20 to 30 at the Josh Barrett lob. I mean, if that goes in, I mean, it's a completely different game. Brilliant. It was a great save as well. And then the last 15, clinging on at the end. Wind was in Ebbsfleet's favour, so let's hope for a better second half. Now, that's great, isn't it? Because the wind changed at half time and it started blowing the other way anyway. So that's great. Ian, I'll come to you. You were there last night and managed to shelter from the rain at half time, which, I mean, you can reveal that secret now, because I don't think anyone knows it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll try and mention the things that people haven't mentioned already. Agree, though, 100% on point gained. And I'm surprised nobody's mentioned that everyone was convinced with the Danny Sale sacking that this had home win written all over it. So I suppose to get a draw in those circumstances is pretty good. I also kept my own notes for it. And I had Edsa, that was probably the worst miss of the night early on. Almost open goal, I've written on that one. Yeah, we absorbed the early pressure, even though they were creating chances, and Ebbsfleet were having a good old go at the shots. Polion as well had a miss that I think it was easier to score. And I reckon 2 up at the break would have probably been on how the game unfolded. As I said, once the rain got a bit heavier, luckily I was aware that the stand on the side is a free for all. You don't need to pay any extra or buy a different ticket. So moved to the side for the second half, and it was a bit better in the second half, but Ebbsfleet still had some pretty golden chances that I think a better tide would have taken. And of course, we had our own great chance or golden chance with Widrington, and you do kind of wish that it had fallen to somebody like Barrett or James Henry if he was on the field at that point to make the most of it. The other thing, I suppose, was Henry not starting and that Tetek came in. Seemed to do okay, but I think we'd all like to have seen Henry start based on how he was. Notice he's been named Vanarama Player of the Month for August. And the other thing about the defence, I noticed McHomer was named in the Vanarama team of midweek for his display last night. So, yeah, I think he had a pretty good game, even though, Ebbsfleet were able to make quite a few chances. But some of that was down to us being quite weak on our flanks, and was a similar theme to what we saw against Rochdale. So, yeah, overall, good point. But we do need to do better away from home against the teams down the bottom.
We just we keep talking about the weakness on our flanks, and I remember last season when Aaron Jones got injured, that massively coincided with a dip in form for us, and we still haven't properly had him back yet this season, apart from a brief 25 minutes or whatever it was at Tamworth, and I think he's our captain. He's one of our first choice flankers, and I'm sure Tommy is absolutely desperate for him to be fully fit, and I've kind of forgotten about him because he's been injured for so long. But I think the sooner he's back and fully firing, we might hopefully see an upturn in that defensive cohesion.
Yeah, let's hope so. Let's hope so. It was pretty much diagonal long balls into that space between the two, the left sided or right sided centre back half and the wing backs. It just meant we were constantly running backwards, I feel. What was I was going to mention one other chance. I mean, Jim Kellerman's free kick in the first half, that was a good save from Dewhurst. Looks certain to go in. I mean, it was like perfect distance out. Also, another thing, I don't know what's going on with that end at Ebbsfleet, because everything went over. Other than that shot, everything went over. Both teams were just firing it over. Edzer had that one.
How strong was the wind?
It's ridiculous. Even James Henry hit it over. What's he doing? He should know. Ugh, you can't teach these guys nothing. Have they learnt nothing from having Waterlooville away in 2014? Think of the wind, for God's sake. Grand. Any other thoughts on Ebbsfleet / not being able to beat bottom four teams?
No, the only thing I'd say was, Joe, I love your description of flankers. It was flankers, you said, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think someone else said that, and I repeated it because it sounded nice.
I love it.
I can edit that. It's fine. Dub out the F to L. It's fine. Nice. Well, we can start to look ahead to the weekend. Boston United are the opposition. We're playing them away at the Boston Community Stadium. Obviously the first thing I thought when Boston came up, even at the start of the season, even last season when they were going towards promotion, was their stint on Soccer AM under the Boston Goals package. I don't know. Just a bit anyway, but I'm going to put a link in the bio of this episode to go and watch this compilation of Boston Goals, but it's brilliant. It'll be in your head all day on Saturday if you listen to it beforehand.
As I said to you on email, that is the part that Boston falling out of the league was when Soccer AM started to nosedive and decline. It was not Tim Lovejoy leaving. It was Boston Goals sketch ending.
So it's added bit. I couldn't believe. Well, because obviously, if you reading about Boston's demise in general, anyway, you've got Steve Evans in there and all the chaos of what happened there. But one of the clips that I saw, it's like 2 or 3 minutes into the compilation thing, is him trying to tackle a Wickham player, and they commentate the two American commentators commentate on it. Superb stuff. So we'll try and get back to. I don't think I'll be able to see Boston in the same light ever again. Annoyingly, I won't be there because there was a one game of the season that I was actually looking forward to because I've obviously not been to Boston, but in Copenhagen this weekend, so I won't be able to watch. Well, might be able to watch on. Who knows? See if I can get National League TV out there. Julian, I'll come to you first. Boston, a bit of an unknown. How are you feeling ahead of Saturday?
Yeah, I was going to say exactly the same thing. A little bit of an unknown team. They didn't start the season so well. They really looked out of their depth through the highlights, but they then went to York City, which was a home banker, and they beat them, and then they followed up, I think, with a victory against Sutton as well. So they will have some renewed confidence that they can stay in the league. They were everybody's favourite to go down at the start of the season, and I think probably they are still one of the favourites to go down. Yeah, it looks, and I'm sure we'll talk about the league table perhaps next week or the week after, but it looks as if there's going to be sort of 5 or 6 teams down there, and I would say they're going to be one of them. I'm not sure how this one's going to go. I'm thinking that they did lose yesterday at home to Hartlepool, so that's not going to help their confidence. And I'm just waiting for that first game that we play where everything really does click into place. I know the Oldham game was a bit special, but away from home, we haven't really done the business, and I'm just waiting for that first game. And I'm just wondering whether that first game is going to be Saturday. There are going to be some changes. I'm sure Tommy's going to make some changes. I would love to see, as Joe said, I would love to see Harfield back in the left wing back role or left flanker, as Joe called it. So to see him bombing down the wing again would be fantastic. And I'm not sure where how close Luke Jenkins is to getting back, but when he played in that left of the back three role against Halifax, it was a clean sheet and we won that game. So I'm not sure how close he is to returning, but they've got some danger players. They've got my research isn't great. They've got a guy up front who's scored a couple of goals already this season. He looks quite useful. And of course, they've got Jay Rowe on their books, who was briefly with us, I think, last season as a right back. Well, no, season before now. So I think they're going to be a tough one to crack, and it could well be another draw for me.
Right. Yeah. As you say, they lost to Hartlepool on Tuesday evening. They did go one ahead through the guy that you just mentioned, Jacob Hazel, he's been scoring their goals at the start of the season. They've also got Adam Marriott, who's it didn't come off the bench on Tuesday, but I'm sure he'll be in the running to start on Saturday. Obviously, just an absolute bagsman. Joe, we'll come to you. Do you think we should put Ollie Harfield at wide receiver for Saturday?
Thanks, Phil. Put him as far wide as you can. I think it's a really hard one to predict this weekend, because if you look at Boston's results, they've had a really tough opening set of fixtures. They haven't really played, barring Tamworth, they haven't really played any of the teams that you'd expect to be further down the table. And the teams that they have played, they haven't, bar losing at home to Forest Green, which was early on in the season, and Rochdale, who are probably two of the best teams in the league. They've really sort of looks like they've held their own, and they have scored, not many, but the last few games their form is very similar to ours, one lost. So who wants to predict that one? I'm going to go for a draw. I don't know loads about Boston. It's really hard with these teams that come up to sort of know how they're going to cope. But I think as Julian said, they probably won't be up there. But I don't pin them as sort of huge relegation favourites. If you're looking at the results of some of the other teams that are in the league at the moment, they've been here for a few years, have had some really poor starts. So I'm going to stick my neck out to say 2-2.
Nice, lovely stuff. Yeah, it is tough to find things out about Boston. All I know is this is the first time they've played in the conference since they won the league in 2001-02, which is obviously interesting because they obviously got relegated from the league, but then didn't play in the conference that season. They were double relegated to the Conference South, and they got relegated again, I think, that season because they had a points deduction. So they ended up in the Northern Premier League. I'll come to you, Guy. How are you feeling ahead of Boston on Saturday?
I mean, I think I'm really reasonably okay about this. I mean, I wasn't sure, so I did a little bit of digging around before we met, and looking at their form, it looks a little bit similar to us. You know, they've won, lost, drawn, so they're a little bit like us. They've only scored 8 goals this season so far, and 4 of them have come from Jacob Hazel, their centre forward. So in a way, if we can sort of nullify him, that really I think could make the difference for us. And also, I've been looking at the odds as well, and as of today, the odds are shortening for Aldershot and lengthening for Boston. So either there's a lot either the bookmakers know something that we don't, or all the punters know something that we don't. But it's the indications are for an Aldershot win or a draw more likely than a Boston one. So in that respect, I have a feel, given where we are. I mean, we've not done we've out of the last 2 games we've got 1 point out of 6. We kind of accepted that Rochdale we were outclassed. Against Ebbsfleet we were lucky to come away with a draw. So I think if there's a time to turn it around, it's probably now. And I think obviously there's going to be a lot of reflection in the team discussions and things over the next couple of days. So I'm actually not looking. Okay, admittedly, it is it is a team lower down the table, and we're pretty inconsistent against them, and that's probably going to be our undoing. But if I'm actually okay about this, I think we could get something from this.
Nice. That's the spirit. That's the spirit. I'll go in with high hopes. It is a 3G pitch, if I'm right, at Boston's ground, I believe. Since yeah. So just keep it on the chart. Obviously Tamworth and now Boston. See how we get on. And the only other thing I didn't mention was that Ian Culverhouse is their manager. So that's a bit of fun, isn't it? So to the other Ian on the other Ian. There's 2. How are you feeling ahead of Saturday?
Yeah, I'm heading to this one day out on the train from King's Cross via Grantham. So looking forward to that. It's new ground for me. We missed them, I think, obviously 20 years ago, getting into the conference after they'd gone up to the league, and then should have played them, but they went down again. I wondered whether you sort of lazily group this one in the same category as Braintree, Ebbsfleet, Tamworth, and that everyone expect that this will be another one that we'll lose when we should win. Hopefully, we'll get something here, and I feel quite optimistic. We do certainly need to improve on the last 2 performances, though. Interesting, about Hazel. Few goals. Looks like he could be quite a asset for them and their bid to stay up. So, looking forward to seeing what they've got to offer.
Nice. I suppose we can probably just discuss the starting lineup and who we feel should get into that first 11 come Saturday, given what we know from Rochdale and Ebbsfleet games. Does anyone want to come in on those?
Yeah, I'll give it a go, Will. I haven't got it right yet, so we'll see what happens. But I think James Henry will start on Saturday. I think there was a plan to give him a bit of rest in midweek so that he's ready for Saturday. So I expect to see him back in. I would probably expect Corbett to start as well. He seems to be obviously struggling a little bit with confidence. This is obviously his first season in men's football, but I think Tommy is going to stick by him. So I think it would be the usual front 3 of Henry, Gandor and Corbett. Midfield, I think Theo might be rested. So I would go for Tetek and Hargreaves in midfield. Wing backs, I'm hoping that Aaron Jones starts. Although Akpan's been playing well, he's been getting some good reports from everybody, including Tommy. I'm hoping that Aaron starts on the left, just gives us a bit more of a solid flanker. And I'm hoping that Harfield will be our other flanker as well, because those 2, I think, could be the key if they're playing in those positions. So that leaves a spot at the back. I would put Maniese in and Mike Homer. And then I think Bird will probably keep his place in the back 3 and Dewhurst for his performance on Tuesday.
Nice. Yeah, I was just going to mention, now you've mentioned Lachlan Bird. The amount of times he gave the ball away last night was infuriating. He kept finding the player in red every time. I don't know what was going on. I know there were a lot of them were interceptions, but it was the same ball on the right hand side to one of our forward players, and it was just getting intercepted every time. Uh, just doing nothing different, just playing the same ball. So I hope it improves his distribution for Saturday if he keeps his place. Because the way he hits it also is like a bobbling ball, so it's going to be even bobblier on Saturday on the 3G pitch that probably won't be watered to really stick the ball up there. Yeah, any thoughts on the midfield and forward line? Are we sticking with Gandor? Are we switching him out for Barham?
I was just going to say it'd be nice to see. Well, I mean, we haven't had Barham play much alongside Gandor yet. Have they started together? Someone interject if they have, but I don't think they have. And Gandor's very good at getting in behind the lines, as is Barham, and Gandor's got that bit of strength as well. So I would like to see those two start together at some point, just to see if it works, because we haven't scored in 2 games. Why not try something new?
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I think last night when Barham came on, they kind of moved to a two up front with Henry in behind those two. So I'm not sure if that was an option. And also the kind of versatility, because last night Hargreaves moved into a centre attacking mid role basically. Or did he start there? Yeah, he started in the centre attacking mid role and then came back into the midfield. So I mean, he was everywhere last night, but yeah, I mean, quite overrun in that midfield with Kellerman. Grand. Anyway, any other thoughts on the lineup for Saturday? Go on, Guy.
Well, I'm not so much about. Well, you got me thinking. I think it was when we were just mentioning whether or not Theo Widdrington might be rested. And it got me wondering because, would it be resting because he's been just doing the minutes, or because, he might be sort of getting close to, picking up too many yellow cards. So I was just having a quick look. And this is something we haven't spoken about a little bit about, the quality of the discipline this time round on the season. So I was just having a quick look. We've had 17 yellow cards so far out of the 8 games, and that actually puts us around in the middle. Actually, Eastleigh's leading the way with 28 at the moment, and a few others around sort of 26, 27. Fewest number around 13. So actually, Aldershot this year is doing rather better when it comes to discipline. If you remember what we talked about last year, there was a lot of indiscipline, a lot of unnecessary yellow cards. We haven't discussed that. I mean, I was wondered whether people have noticed it, and whether that's why that's happening. I think whether it's a lot of it's got to do with sort of leading from the front, and I think Tommy Widdrington seems to be a little bit more sort of restrained this year, if that's possible.
I do also think, Guy, that about half of those yellows were from Josh Stokes. So that might be, and Tollard as well picked up quite a few. So I wonder whether that might play slightly into it.
So also, I think, I mean, I'm already, as soon as you said why haven't we talked about it, I feel like next week we might be talking about it quite a lot because there'll be something mad will happen on Saturday, such is the way with this team. Yeah, yeah. So we're no Reds yet. That's the that's the bigger news. No Reds for Tommy yet. Has he been red carded this season? Don't think so. Nice. The only other thing, anyone going to Newport, Isle of Wight in the Hampshire Senior Cup?
I think someone here said, was this our first international or overseas trip or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a question put out. If anyone knows for certain, or overseas or.
Well, that's a question for the listeners, isn't it? So where has Aldershot played in across the water elsewhere?
You remember Shetland away a few years ago? Massive.
Does Portsmouth count being an island?
Oh God.
we used to play Canvey Island as well.
Yes, Canvey Island. Yeah, it's got to be some niche ones.
Did we take about 3,000 fans to Canvey Island or something ridiculous?
Yeah, the
first drop.
Yeah, we won the Ryman.
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah, so if anyone's got any thoughts on what counts as international, then let us know. And if you're going, let us know what your trip is looking like. Are you getting the hovercraft? Because that's what I would do if I was free and available and
surely
wanted to go.
Julian, my Welsh friends would be arguing with you there that Wrexham is an international game.
True. It's an international stadium, of course. So, you know, was it the first? Oh, can't remember this off the top of my bonds, but the first international game was held at. Oh, I'll just look it up. Hold on.
Obviously, the old club last game was at Cardiff.
I have to say, when I watched that, the Wrexham document, the Wrexham show, and I was really annoyed when they sort of, how they sort of spend quite a bit of chunk of time on a particular game, and I think then they sort of got into the middle of the season and they sort of went over that sort of insane 4-3 game with us and just glossed over it. And I think there's like one or two sort of stock footage photos of it, and that was about it. No time spent on our game at all. I was a little bit annoyed by that.
They don't know how big Aldershot are as a club.
No, they don't.
Hollywood mentions on Twitter would have been huge.
Could you imagine, like, we suddenly discover we've got a whole, fan base in Los Angeles?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised actually that game they didn't
that
make
was
more of
a
that
wild
game.
Yeah, exactly. It was such a wild game. I'd have expected them to have actually, you've done a little bit more on it. But
this is what we have to contend with, etc. in this league.
Was it the season before where they were helping the groundsman to push the water off the pitch to try and keep the game going?
Yeah.
But I was sure this was what I was thinking about. Guy might be thinking it was a different game, but yeah,
I was thinking the February 23 one where I think it was 4-3 and they got the winner in the final.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, I was more thinking about the flooding one, just because that would have been good TV, and that wasn't really featured.
Mm.
It was like a 30-second clip as well.
Oh, you're talking about the Gateshead one?
No, the Wrexham home game when it was called off about an hour into it because it was too wet.
Okay, we can put an end to Wrexham. It is the world's oldest international football stadium that still hosts international matches, having hosted Wales.
That's a very specific.
Yeah, it hosted Wales's first home international match in 1877. So how about that for all our Welsh listeners? They'll love that.
Again, I think it's just me, Will, in Wales. I think it's just me.
My brother lives in Carnarvon. I can send it to him.
Oh, that's
huge. That's North and South Wales ticked off.
It just reminds me, all this international. Do you know the fun trivia fact for Brazil's first ever international football match was against which team?
Exeter.
Yeah, good man. Good man.
Yeah.
Great. Let's end it there. Thank you, Guy, Julian, Joe, and Ian.
Cheers, guys. Enjoy that.
Cheers. Yeah.
Yep,
Thank
cheers.
you.
Good chat.